Time to talk to another former Belleville Bull on the OHL podcast, and not just any Belleville Bull, a member of, still to this day, the city's and the franchise's only OHL championship, Justin Papineau. Hey, thanks very much for making time for us.
No, thank you for having me out here.
I was looking back at your draft year. You're a first rounder to the Ontario Hockey League, so highly touted. But as an Ottawa boy, weren't you supposed to wear the barber poles and play with the 67s?
Yeah, that's where I ended. I tried to end up playing there, right? Not going too far from home, and then Belleville took a chance on the 11th pick, right before Ottawa, and said, "Hey, you know what? We're going to gamble," and it paid off.
Paid off for you too, I guess.
Yeah, definitely, for sure, right? It was a great 4 years there. There's no regrets of not playing in Ottawa, right? Half the time, half the people were either in Belleville or I was home playing here, right? So it wasn't a great division to be in, great travel. So I couldn't ask for a better team.
What was it like for you as an Ottawa kid going to the Quinte region and playing for the Belleville Bulls?
Growing up in Ottawa, you're always in Toronto. You're always out that way anyways with every tournament you're playing now, right? With the Ottawa Regent, you're always up there playing against the top teams in Toronto, right? So, a little bit familiar with the area and being out that way. So, it wasn't that bad, right? A two hour and a half drive from Ottawa, which is, my grandparents, my parents, so, we're there every Saturday for that Belleville Bulls home game, right? So again, it felt like I was playing at home, even though it was just down the road.
Larry Mavety is your first head coach in the Ontario Hockey League. That's quite a way to make an introduction to a new league. What was it like playing for Mav?
Oh, it was great. It was the old school, not really used to that kind of maybe the swearing, the all the other stuff that came with it, right? Or we would lose a game, or we'd be on a streak where we hadn't won a couple games, and you wouldn't even come on the ice and be like, "Hey guys, this is practice right now," and we didn't see a puck for an hour, right? So a little bit times have changed in those eras, right? But a great coach, there for the guys, and a lot of respect for the guy.
Did he help you develop as a player?
Yeah, for sure, right? The old school mentality, and back then you almost have to develop as a player, on your own a little bit with some coaching guidance, right? Because it's almost like you were expected to know these things or get there, right? And when you're that young, you're just trying to learn from your peers as well, right? And learn the system and just get your feet wet, and go the best you can, right?
I think that's such a great point on the peers, right? So who on your team helped you make that transition into the Ontario Hockey League?
There's some of the guys like Ryan Reddy, James Boy, guys, leaders like that were there, in my time, as a young player, right? Coming in and learning the ropes and respecting, that time of ice or what you were going to get, and you had to earn it, right? Because guys just weren't going to say, "Hey, you know what? You're the young guy here. You go play, take my spot," right? So, a little bit different, coming in the league back then than it would be, maybe coming in the league nowadays.
I'm glad you brought up Boydie, because his name showed up when I was, looking up some of your former teammates, et cetera. And he became your assistant coach before you were done. So he's a teammate. And then in your last year, he was there behind the bench.
Yeah, it's funny how it goes, right? You go from a player to a coach, right? So again, you look up to those guys, and they've had a lot of, he had a great career, right? And now he's coaching he's GM now of Ottawa 67s, right? So, when you take that path, you have to have a knack for it, right? And, he's doing a great job in Ottawa in the last, 3-4 years that he's been there. So it's been nice. I've seen him around a couple of times and get to shoot the shit with him a little bit, right? Same with Norm Millie, when I play with him in Europe, and he's back here in Ottawa now too. So it's been nice to, come all the way around, and see those guys again, right? That you haven't kind of connected with in a while.
I was going to mention that, and I'm not trying to kiss anybody's ass here, but what Boydie has done in Ottawa, for my money, I mean, is an incredible accomplishment as a GM. The drafting, the way the team has been consistently competitive, 3 obviously OHL regular season titles in the past 4 years. I could go on, but obviously you're keeping connected, and maybe you get a sense of how it is he's going about doing this.
Yeah, I mean, draft is your big thing, right? And keeping the core and getting the right players and the right coaches in the right spot, right? If it's not a team, it's not going to work, right? And I think, from his experience playing and coaching down the road, I mean, that's something that he wants to build, right? When like I talked to Norm, and it's first class. They're bringing in kids. They got a program. They're doing what they need to do to win, right? And if they stick to it, what works, like I said, right? They've fallen short a bit, but like you said, right? 3 titles in 4 years is pretty good, in any league, right?
So back to you when you get to Belleville and you're playing for an old school coach like Larry Mavety, you're also playing in an arena that has different dimensions than other arenas in the Ontario Hockey League. Did you have a distinct home ice advantage with the Bulls, did you feel?
Oh, for sure, right? I think if you were smart and you had a good skating team, with that big ice surface, and you were fast, and you didn't have to be super big, right? We were, we had we had Daniel Cleary and those guys that could skate and play and go, right? Again, it's a bit to your advantage because you're coming in off a big rink, right? You think you have time, but you don't, right? The bigger rink, guys. Yes, you do. Oh, the bigger rink, but it's further to get to the net, right? So again, things change, and when you're coming in as a visiting team, it might take you a period or two, to get used to it. But once you're there, things seem to open up. The rink's bigger, and maybe not as as physical or trying to catch someone, in a smaller barn, right?
As a first round pick into the Ontario Hockey League, obviously you come in with expectations. How did you deal with that pressure?
When you're that young, I don't know if I had any expectations at that point, right? I was just trying to play and bring what I brought to the table, right? Was quickness, speed, playmaking, right? So trying to put that in, and just trying to adapt to to older guys, right? And bigger guys. I had played, tier 2 junior the year before with 21-year-olds, right? So was I coming in fresh from playing bantam? No, right? Which, kind of gave you that sense of, I knew what to expect from physicality from older players. I'm playing here in junior, right? So adapting to what I did best, right? I had a few ups and downs that year, and got hurt, and at that point, came back the next year stronger than ever, right?
Having played tier 2 the year before, did that make it less intimidating in the Ontario Hockey League? Because you were playing still in an era, Justin, where, it wasn't uncommon to see fights in the game for sure.
Oh, definitely, right? Like getting that junior experience, that 1 year of junior, and playing that definitely, gets you prepared, right? Where the guys are bigger, they're taking runs, there's fights, there's still cross checks, there's still hooking, slashing, right? A little bit of a different era back then, right? Where you couldn't take the night off because, or you knew it was going to be a run. You knew you were going to get run, or you were going to get hit. You were going to get that every night, day and day. Not to say that it's not the same now. It's just a little bit cleaner, right? When it comes to that game, and the openness and the skating now, right? Compared to, to back then.
From Mav when you were a rookie to Lou Crawford as your coach in Belleville, and that's not only a name, the Crawford family that is hockey royalty in the city, but is that like kind of going from old school to slightly less old school when Lou takes over?
For sure, right? Lou was a little bit more, we had Fred Bornstruck, and coaching staff was a little bit different, right? Than when we have Mav up there, right? So again, that perspective of that coaching staff, and having a little bit more training, and more setup, and more, this is the system and we're going to stick by it, right? And I think that kind of changed that team a little bit in our third year, with the players we had, and we kind of fell short a little bit the year before. Expectations were high and we didn't meet them, and then the next year it just seemed to click after Christmas. That year where Lou took over, that was his second year, and we learned from the first year, and we cleaned it up.
You talk about just falling short, and that would be the 98 season, 97, 98, and Plymouth knocks you out in the second round. And I wondered about that. Do you have to lose, do you believe, Justin, in order to learn how to win, maybe is the way to put it?
Yeah, I mean, in anything, right? You have to be able to learn from that mistake and not make it again, right? And to learn to adapt. We knew that we had a team that could go push, and we fell short. And back to the drawing board the next year and brought in some different players, and we brought in another line of young guys, and it just seemed to fit that time, right? And it's like you say, it happens in every major sport, right? Like, this year the Boston Bruins are a favorite to win. They get knocked out in the first round, right? Next year they might not be the first team overall and then come back and win a cup, right? It's just, finding the right bounces and the right chemistry and putting it all on the line.
So you mentioned that championship season after you kind of learned from that loss the year before. It was after Christmas where things really started to come together. What gave you that feeling during that championship season?
You know, it all kind of started a little bit with World Juniors. Didn't have a really World Junior camp. Got hurt a little bit. Kind of disappointed in myself and play, and kind of saying, you know what, I can play at this level. I can do this, right? And with the team we had, we kind of, it started to click, and we started to gel. We were a really close team, from young guys to up, to older guys, to just meshing, right? We always did things together. We're always joking around, and it just seemed to, after Christmas, kind of fall into place. And we just kind of rode the wave, and it just right into playoffs where we said, hey boys, like we can win this, right? We go in and beat a team 4-1. We go in and we have to play Ottawa the next round. I think we beat Sudbury that year at 4-0, and then we go in to play Ottawa and we win at 4-1, right? Now we're going back into Oshawa, and we're like, hey, like, let's do this. Like, we're here now. We're doing it. We're playing great hockey, and it just, everything seemed to fall in our lap till we have to play London, right? And we're up 3-1, right? And we're going home, and a few things say in the paper, and they come back and beat us, and then we're going back to London again, right? So again, it was an up and down playoff a little bit to that last series, and then we needed to put it together for Game 7, which we came out and said, boys, we've done this too far, and there wasn't really a pregame speech. There was, write this for your family and put it on the board, and here we go. And we went out and did it, right?
Yeah, that was a whale of a final in '99 that captured that first championship for Belleville. I want to take half a step back, though. We'll come to this, but yeah. You talked about, maybe a disappointing start to your season personally. You led the Bulls in scoring that year, if I'm not mistaken. How much pressure did you put on yourself? What did you expect of yourself?
I don't coming in off that last season and losing a couple of guys that you might be able to lean on a little bit more because you're not that guy yet, right? Where those guys are doing those things, and came back, like I said, at the beginning of the year, I didn't play bad hockey. I just it didn't click as much as I'd like, and then after that thing, it just a light bulb went off, and I was like, okay, look, this is either this is what I need to do. And I kind of took it, personal after that. And I felt like I needed to put it together. And it just, we started playing good hockey. We gelled as a team, Chichu, Reddy, the line just kept clicking, right? And, when that guy's going, put the puck on his stick, and, he's going to score goals for you, right? And like I said, the line was great. There was some grit on it. There was some strongness. There's some scoring. Again, that carried us into it, right? And then, you have your second line and your third line going, and we have the kid line, going out there and contributing goals for us. Come after that, like I said, after that Christmas, we really did a push, right? And it seemed to pay off, as a team as a whole, right? And I think that's what made us, win that championship. Not just one guy or two guys or three. It was the whole team, pulling the rope the same way, right?
You nailed that playoff run when you described it a moment ago. You sweep Sudbury, you knock off Ottawa in 5, you knock off Oshawa in 5, and then you build that 3-1 lead in the final versus London. I mean, you guys are cruising. Did doubt creep in at any point after London wins Game 5 in your barn? You're going back to the ice house for Game 6. Was there any doubt in your mind by that point?
I wouldn't say there was doubt. I said, we blew we were up 3-1, and we kind of knew Game 7. I look over to Chichu in the dressing room. I said, but we're not losing this game. no matter what, right? I said, we're going to go out there, and we're going to put all on the line, right? And it's just, he went out there and had a game of his life, right? And anything that guy did in that game 7, you couldn't stop him, right? He was on a mission. Give him the puck and let him go, right? And we knew, when we scored that first goal, there was no way we were losing that hockey game, right? You can feel it in the barn. There's probably 3,000 more people that should have been in that rink that day, right? People standing, people everywhere, right? So, once that goal went in, it was like, here we go, right? You can just feel it. You can give you goosebumps talking about it, on the bench, that we knew once we came out flying, we weren't losing that game 7.
There has been a lot of talk over the years, including in the documentary that was made on the anniversary of that Bulls championship, about Coach Crawford before that game 7, asking you all, and you alluded to it earlier, to write the initials of someone that mattered to you, that you wanted to win that game 7 for.
Yeah.
Whose initials did you write down?
I wrote down my parents. They've been a big supporter ever since, I started this journey as a kid, right? The time at the rink and, making ends meet for my parents, right? They didn't come from a whole lot. So everything we did, had to be hockey and nothing else, right? We did a little bit of school sports and stuff like that, but, no skiing, no nothing. And it was just, hey, if we're going to do this, with 2 other kids, at those times, right? Buying a house at 17%, right? We weren't doing a whole lot of extra stuff, right? So again, I wrote my parents down that day and my family and said, what, it's for them, right? Because, they're up there every weekend, right? From my grandparents to cousins to aunts who came pretty much, I bet you there wasn't a game in my 4 years that someone wasn't there from Ottawa.
You won big in that final game, 9-2. And as you mentioned, Chichu was not going to let the team lose. You guys were buzzing. What's it like in that arena when obviously you're drumming these guys? It's over. Like, does the final 5 minutes take 5 hours or feel like it to you? Because it's right there for the taking.
For sure, right? I mean, it's going quicker than you think, right? When you're maybe 3-2 or 4-2, and you're like, oh, it's 9-2 now, right? And we're buzzing. We know this is coming, right? No matter what. Like the last 5 minutes, like I said, it does seem forever, but for us, we knew it. There was no way they were coming back, right? So, coming in that third period and in your mid-third period, you're like, hey, like there's no way they're scoring 7, right? And now, the team's buzzing, boys are going, and we were just having fun, right? And that was kind of the thing. Like, we were going to go out there and leave it all on the line and have fun. And that was the theme is just, go out there and do what we needed to do to win and have fun doing it, right? And that's exactly what we did in game 7.
I respect you, Justin, for giving the credit that you've given to Cheech for his performance. But we have to just let these numbers sink in for a moment. 21 goals and 51 points in 21 games. Those were your numbers in that playoff when you won the Wayne Gretzky 99 award. 51 points in 21 games. Even in modern day, that's bananas. What was that playoff like for you? Everything you touched just went in?
Yeah, it was one of those things, right? Where, like I said, like it was to prove that I could be the best player in that league, right? In that year, right? In that moment, right? Like I said, it was hard work and dedication. And like I said, with those 2 guys on my line, it is what it was, right? But, there's times where we're doing things on our own and getting things done, right? And like I said, like, to score 21 and every game to score, to get a goal a game, not every game I scored, a goal, but I got something going, right? And once it started, with the power play or the PK or even strength, right? That year was just a year that seemed to be everything I did touch, it seemed to just go my way, right? From plays to moves to everything that we done in that playoff. If you watch the rounds and you watch the games, right? We were a wrecking ball. We weren't going to be stopped, right?
So I'm sure you had no idea at the time But I heard the story recently and I had to chuckle. I'm sure you can laugh about it now too. But you get named that playoff MVP. There's David Branch on the ice at the Yardman Arena calling out your name. And the league had just created this 99 award because Gretzky had just retired. But what they gave you as the award that night in the arena, Justin, was nothing compared to the actual award. It could have been something that maybe they gave to a peewee hockey team when you're 8 years old or something. What were you thinking when they handed over that plaque to you?
You know what? At that point, it was just a team, and the feeling of winning that thing. You could have given me a piece of paper at that point, and it wasn't that it was winning the trophy. It was winning it and heading to Memorial Cup was our goal, right? And yes, the award is the award, right? And I get to, like I said, like I don't think I've ever seen that trophy till we did the Bulls documentary, right? Where they brought it to the house. They're like, hey, we're bringing the trophy here. And, they gave me a plaque and said, thank you, and it never really crossed my mind, right? As you chuckle back and say, hey, and the kids are like, Dad, you won this award. And I'm like, yeah, and then, you go 3-4 years back, well, a little bit more than that when McDavid's playing his OHL title and his 49. And now I'm getting, it's on TSN and guys are calling me like, you never told me this. I said, yeah, but it wasn't broadcast on the internet. And yes, that was my point. Did I know I had the record? Maybe a little bit, but would I go out and talk about it? Probably not. Until now, my buddies are like, well, you never told us that. I said, well, yeah, but there wasn't no Google and there wasn't no, things like that back in the day as much as there are now. And everything's about stats and numbers and this and that. So, when we go back and laugh at it, right? You're a little bit, take a bit of pride when McDavid's there and he's trying to do it and beat it, right? Which is probably one of the greatest, going to be of this era right now, right? And you can't touch him on the ice, and it's nice to just be ahead of him by a couple of points, right? So it's kind of funny, right?
So
it's my claim to fame.
You do not have a 51 in 21 tattoo, then, is what you're saying?
No, I do not. That's for sure.
What were you thinking when you saw that trophy for the first time, which came so much later?
Yeah, it just brought back all the memories, right? When you're sitting there chatting about that year, and you look back and then you see it and you see the names that are on it, right? There's a lot of great players on that trophy, right? So it's a tough trophy to win. It was an honor to have done it as the first player in '99 with Wayne Gretzky playing, wearing number 99. So it's kind of all fallen into place, and that's where it stands, right? So records are made to be broken, and maybe someday someone will do it, right? And then they'll have the title and they'll be able to talk about it, right?
Yeah, I was thinking of that very, very saying. If records are made to be broken, but if McDavid can't do it,
mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe nobody can.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, right? There's always something will come up at one point, and if someone does, great for them, because that's a hell of a hockey player, a hell of a year that player is going to have in a playoff run in this day, in this era, right? If they can play it and do it and have it, great for them. Tip my hat and have a beer for them or a shot, and and that'll be the end of that, right?
Okay, so you win the OHL championship, and it's off to the Memorial Cup, and it is in all places your hometown of Ottawa. What was that experience like for you in '99?
That kind of give it a little bit more of a meaning to win that year, right? Just knowing that you're coming back to Ottawa, right? And what are the odds of that happening? We did it, right, and come back to Memorial Cup, and Ottawa's lovely to put us in a great hotel, right? With construction and that, because that's what Ottawa does, right? But it is part of the game and part of the thing. But we were pretty banged up, playing that series against London in the playoffs. Not time to rest, to lose a 40 goal scorer like Kevin Baker in the playoffs, and then second game in you lose Chichu with a knee injury, right? So now you're down to just you're down a couple players, and now you're pulling a lot of load, right? So I think we just ran out of steam that year. Came back to beat Ottawa in that one game, and they came back and beat us in that semifinal game to go to the finals, right? So again, I just, could we have done a bit better if we were healthier? For sure we could have, right? But like I said, it's no excuse. But there's a few things that played out in not in our favor, and we gave it away. We left everything we possibly could on that ice in the semis against Ottawa, and we came up short.
Coming back to beat them just prior to that semifinal game, double overtime. What do you remember of the fourth intermission after the first OT?
Like I said, right, we were down that game and we fought back to tie it, right? And we knew that, this is do or die, right, for us, and we needed to come out with a win, right? And we, like I said, it was it's that push, and I think we just ran out of luck in the next game, and we gave it all we had, right? It was a great fought game, and you could look back and say, hey, that was our final game, right? At that point where we had everything we could, and then like again, you go the next day and they come up big and they beat us, right? So maybe in another best of 7 series we beat them again, sure. But Memorial Cup's a 1-game, and again it came down to that, and we just, like I said, we left everything we possibly could, on the ice, and we knew it. We just fell short.
I'd kind of forgotten about those hotel arrangements and that Memorial Cup. We had Jack Miller on this podcast 100 years ago, and he talked about that a little bit. There were some shenanigans going on, weren't there?
Oh, everything they possibly could do, to make us, not comfortable, they did. Will they say, oh, they put us in the Talisman Hotel out of all the hotels they could have put us in, right down a travel lodge that was under construction. They gave us they gave us the awful room. We were always, they knew it too, right? So again, I felt, it could have been a little bit better, but it is what it is, and you fight through that adversity. And like I said, in that game, we came back and beat them, and they beat us the next game, right? So it's a 50-50, and like I said, we have no regrets of that. Would we have loved to have won it? For sure, like everybody does, right? But winning that title that year and not getting a bye, was our championship, right?
Lots of guys we've talked to who have won championships talk about how close-knit those championship teams are. How tight are you still with the guys you play with?
Oh, definitely, right? Like, it's definitely, from guys that I played with from, Randy Rowe and Renzi, and, we came back to golf last year with Newberry and those guys, right? So, Silverstone, some of those guys, like Chicho, I haven't been much contact with, right? But, for most part, a lot of those guys are still in contact, right? Chris Stanley's over in Europe coaching, right? The last time I checked, right? So again, like, we always follow each other and chat, right? I chat a lot with Randy Rowe, and Ryan Reddy's up that way too. So we cross paths over in Europe too. So it's been great, right? It's it's tough to keep track with everyone with such a busy life and with kids and everything else in this world, right? It's but when we do get together and we do chat, we do talk about the old times, right?
Okay, so speaking of kids, what's it like for you going back to Belleville to watch the Charging Bulls documentary at the Empire Theater with your kids sitting there with you? What are those emotions?
Well, it's just a proud father moment, right? Of all that stuff that you build up to, right, and make a push and make a push in the NHL and be that, to be that player or that dad to be like, hey, you know what, I did make it there. I did play a short stint in it, right? But there are not too many people in this world that can say they played in the NHL, right? And in an era that was a little bit different than today's game, right? A lot more skill, a lot more, players like myself making it and having great careers doing it, right? Where back in the day, I'm not saying there weren't great hockey players back then. There were a lot of them, right? But a lot different style than today's game.
They put the C on you for your final year in Belleville. What did that mean to you?
You know what, it meant a lot, right? Following the captaincies of great players there, right? With Ryan Reddy being there, that's a big shoes to fill, right? The year after, right? And the guys before that. So, taking that honor and being able to wear it with pride and to lead, the team to a playoffs that year again, right? With a different team and a little bit different, right? So, it was an honor, and I took it, personal to be the best leader I could be that year.
We talked earlier about records were made to be broken, but 51-21 might never be. We'll see. One championship in Belleville Bulls history, and now, I mean, who knows, that might last forever because there are no more Belleville Bulls. How sad does that make you?
Yeah, it's a little bit saddening that they weren't able to keep that team there. You never know what happens down in the past, right? In the future, right? You never know what could come back there. I know the city's, adamant of getting a team back at one point. Lots of talks. Right now the Sens are there, so they've done a great job. It's not the same as an OHL team, but there's a lot of support there. A lot of people like to go watch the game. So even though there's no OHL, there's a an American League team, which is great. But it's a little sad that it kind of died off when you kind of look back with your kids and you go there and there's no more Bulls, right? And to share that with your own kids, or your son or daughter who's playing hockey nowadays, right? Where they both play, where they would have been nice to go back and, hey, this is where I played. This was our dressing room, right? So a little bit different. It's a little sad.
You talk about that chance that not everybody gets to say they played in the National Hockey League. For you, it was originally drafted by the Kings in the second round, ultimately going to St. Louis in the third. Why didn't it work out with LA?
I don't know. Just things. We were a little bit far apart on certain things. Maybe looking back, do I do it or do I not? Do I regret? No. Do I had a great career? Sure. Do I have a great? I got a great wife. I got 2 great kids. Would I change it? No. Did I go play in Europe? Sure. Right. Did I do the things I wanted to do in life? For sure I did. Right. I can sit here and nod and hoot and this and that and for what? Right. Like I said, right. Things happen for a reason. Maybe it wasn't just for me to play a 10-year career. Maybe it was for me to just play and go on and do different things in life. Right. And, I have no regrets on anything that transpired over my career or decisions I made. Right. I chose to do it. It was my decision to go back in the draft, to prove myself, to go to St. Louis and go there with no contract. Until I showed up in training camp in the American League and bought myself a contract by playing myself onto a team, right? So that's where it stood, and there's things that I did or decisions that I made that I got to live with. And like I said, I have no regrets on the decisions I made as a hockey player or the morals that I stood for, in life. And it's brought me to today. And to where I am, and I have a great job. My wife has a great job. We have great kids. Everybody's healthy, and that's what matters to me.
You played for Joel Quenneville in St. Louis, who of course would go on to be almost a master of the way he was winning Stanley Cups with Chicago. Did you have an inkling of it even then that this guy was destined for NHL coaching greatness?
I spent a little stint up there with him, right? I spent a lot of time with Mike Kitchen, the assistant coach, as a player, kind of up and down until I got traded, right? I didn't really see him much as a coach, but when he did talk, you listened, and there was a lot of, great communication and stuff like that as a player to get better. And then he goes on and wins a bunch of cups, right? Which is great for him. And, doing a good job with some assistant coaches that really, helped him, become the coach he is, right? Like I always said, you're never a great coach without the people you surround yourself with, right? So, it's a coaching staff. And I feel like the coaching staff that he had did a great job with him.
What was your first NHL game?
My first NHL game, Edmonton. I think we played in Edmonton. Was I there? Yes, I think I played in St. Louis against Edmonton. If I can recall, this is going back now. Geez, you're catching me off guard here.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's almost, there's so much emotion going into it that when it actually happens, you might have to take a moment to, reflect back on the moment that it was.
Yeah, for sure, right? Like you get into that game and you get out there and the things are, you're nervous and you're playing on the top line and you haven't really played a whole lot or been up there with much, right? So when you get out there, it's a little bit different than it. Everybody seems to be fine now with the younger players and that, but you get out there and there's not six other rookies with you, right? There is none, right? There's just you, right? And you get that odd guy and you get these guys who have played 15 years and 17 years yelling down at the bench at you. It's kind of like, oh, here we go, right? But it was a great experience and I wouldn't change it for the world.
How did you know it was time, or what led to the decision to head for Europe?
I had suffered a few injuries and I just, was up in New Jersey, proved myself again, was supposed to go up and play with New Jersey that year. Lou called me in the summer to sign there and it was a great decision for me. And I just broken an ankle again. Kid was just being born and 6 months without putting any pressure on that leg. And, I just told my wife, I said, you know what, I'm getting tired of getting beat on, right? Like it ever seemed to be like, I'd get there and then something, would crush me or I'd get hit or, and I said to her, I said, you know what, like a bunch of my buddies had gone there the year before and I thought about going the year before. And I said, you know what, I've done it. I've proved myself. I feel like this is the new, this is the way I'm going, right? This is where I feel is going to take me, right? And I told my wife, I said, I'm done. I'm tired. This is the third year in 3 years where I had suffered injuries with the shoulder, then a shoulder again, surgery, and then come back and prove myself again. And then to fall short again and to not, and, have to go back down and prove myself again to get called up. I just said, like, I'm kind of tired and of that situation. And I told her, I said, let's go. And wherever this takes us, right? And we end up going to Switzerland and from Switzerland to Germany and, a bad injury in 2010, put me on the sidelines forever, right? So, but I don't regret any of that decision of going to Europe. I met some great people down there, friends that we still chat with, in those journeys we had. And like I said, my kids probably seen more countries than most people have, right? So it was a great experience and a lot of fun. Yeah.
How are you feeling today? I mean, ankle, shoulder, I think the bad injury in 10 was back, wasn't it? Like, how are the old bones today, Justin?
My back is always sore. A replacement vertebrae and a couple of discs with a titanium one. Shoulder has been redone, the knee, the ankle. It's not fun when days go from -40 to +20, but, those winter days. But again, pain is pain. Try to live through it for now. But again, you know what I mean? I still get out. I play my once a week hockey with my brace and stuff like that. And, I get out golfing, here and there, depending on how I feel. But, for most days, it's not too bad. But, like I said, the last injury kind of really put a toll on my body, like physically, where I'm in a lot of pain. Numbness in the arm and numbness in the shoulder and neck and bulging disc there. So, compensated over in Europe for it. But at the end of it, that's part of the game. I can walk, and that's what matters, right?
You wouldn't get -40 as much if you just got the hell out of Ottawa.
I could. Yes, I could. My wife's been like, we should go to Kelowna and go places where it's a little bit warmer, right? But like I said, right, we established here, 10 years ago and things are great, right? But, maybe when the kids are older, we head down south or something, right? And, have two places or whatever. But at this point, works great. Wife's got a great job and as a school teacher, right? And she loves it. So, to pack up and go just because of my achy bones, it might not go over well with the rest of it, right? But there are some stuff I can take that help, right? But like I said, ever since a kid, you kind of tolerance of pain is up there, because every game you're aching or you're sore or someone slashed you, right? So again, it's not something that bugs me on a regular basis.
Ottawa is. I'm just picking on it just a little bit because it gets so damn cold.
Oh, it does, right? But we've been lucky. The last, like I said, the last 10 years, it hasn't been that cold as I remember when I was probably 10, 11 years old, right? Where it was minus 40 for weeks at a time, where we might get minus 30 now, and it won't last very long, right?
I was thinking on what you were talking about when you got tired in the NHL/AHL, the up and the down, the grind. And I don't think we appreciate that enough sometimes, Justin, that the mental grind that is part of that. And really what you were experiencing, I would say firsthand, is the business side of this game, weren't you?
Oh, definitely, right. You look at some players and they're getting chances and opportunities, and again, there's things in my game I could have probably fixed or been better at in that day and age, and it just wasn't as it was today with figuring out defensive play and offense and this and that and being an all-around player, right? I kind of figured that out a little bit later in my career, probably when I decided to go over in Europe and play a different game, which I don't think I figured out early enough. And, like I said, with some injuries and this, the mental part of it, going up, down, ending up in this city or trading or going here, or, where am I going to play next year, right? People don't see the side of that, right? Oh, it's great, glory, and the 10, 15% of the top players is great, right? But when you're up and down and over and on waivers and up, it takes a toll mentally, right? And maybe my body was physically tired, but I was also mentally to the point where I was like, you know what, how much more do I grind this out, and how much more beating do I take in today's game, and in that day and age in game, and put my body in the line, to do what I love at the end of the day. Like I said, I made that decision based on it was time to go, and it was time to go to Europe with another plan, and say, hey, you know what, we're going to be here. And like I said, right, without my injury, would have I played another 7-8 years and probably in Europe? Most likely, yeah. Right. I get hurt at 30, forced to retire. Docs come in and say, you need major surgery. If not, you're paralyzed. You make that decision in a hurry. And that's when we decided to hang it up and say, hey, you know what, here's another journey, and here's another curveball. And like I said, if it was all, roses and this and that, and I'd be playing in the NHL for 20 years. Right. But, it isn't. And there's been some curveballs, and we've adapted as a family. And like I said, I ended up buying a cottage, and the kids like fishing, and, we've been all over the place. So it's been a fantastic career, ever since I started playing in the OHL, right? So, the people I've met, the people I've connected with, I have nothing bad to say about my experience.
How did the injury happen?
Well, I was actually playing with Nathan Robinson, which I did play with back at the Bulls over in Mannheim, and we were on a 2-on-1, and he went to do like a fake shot pass, and the defenseman slid down and caught the end of my foot. I tried to open up to get it because the puck kind of went back towards, instead of coming to my forehand, it was going to my back. And as I turned, he clipped my foot and knocked me backwards into the boards, at full speed, probably, 7-8 feet. So as I hit the boards, it's a pressure fracture, lower body, upper body crushed like an accordion. And it just, that was it, right? I couldn't feel. And, I spent a lot of time in the hospital at the beginning, right? Went 9 weeks with a broken back, with a brace. And they said, yeah, you're going to be able to come back playing, and, it's going to heal itself. And, here you go. Right. I get a phone call, go in for my regular checkup, and go see that doctor. And he's like, oh, you need to go see some specialists somewhere else. Go see the specialists. And they're like, you need to have you can sit down for a second. I need to talk to you. And I said, well, sitting down is not very good news. And he's like, well, you have it hasn't healed. You need to have emergency surgery. If not, there's only like this much of your bone holding you together. If I would have just slipped in the fridge and grab milk, I could have paralyzed right there, right? So, and I had started training a little bit, with my brace on, running on mats that were soft, to get back in the game, after 7-8 weeks. It could have been a lot worse than it was, right? So, I go in on December 21st, and I spend till, January 31st in the hospital. And, my family and my daughter and I, my wife, spent Christmas in the hospital, in pretty bad shape, right? With that surgery. And it's not a easy surgery, right? It's a very complicated surgery on your, with a spine, right? That's right there. So I had great care, Daniel Hopp in Mannheim and the doctors there and the staff and them put me in with the right doctors. And, I got a great surgeon. Dr. Maschke in Germany is phenomenal. One of the head surgeons there on back, and fixed me up, right? So, in some good luck, in some bad luck, I've had some good luck that I'm still able to move, walk, and be able to, to do the things that I normally did on a daily basis, right?
I can't imagine how scary, if not outright terrifying, that would have been when you hit the boards and you can't feel anything in that moment. Do you remember what was going through your mind in that moment after you run into the boards and you realize, I can't get up right now?
Yeah, it's pretty scary, right? The only thing that kind of kept me sane is I could move my toes, right? But I couldn't feel, from my knees to kind of my chest, because it was so painful, right? And it had fractured almost right through, right? At the time, do you know it? No, right? But you're like, and I went to the doctors and get x-rays and that, and they're like, well, you have an old injury, it's swollen, we can't see. I get put in a brace, drive, back to Mannheim and go see the doctors. And then they say, hey, you got a broken back, right? And, the next day when it all clears up, right? So, it took me about 2 hours to pee before I can actually get out of the fucking hospital, right? So, I'm sitting there, it's like 4 to 5 in the morning, right? And now I'm like, they're like, well, if you can walk out of here and you can go to the washroom, you can leave. And I'm like, okay, well, it's like 5 in the morning. I'm in a different city. I'm with our team trainer and a driver, right? And they're like, I said, look, just put me in the car. Let's get out of here and we'll deal. So I walked out of there with a broken back, find myself the next day in the hospital. My wife met me at the house and made sure I got okay. And then we left that morning to go see another doctor and our team doctor and specialist and got that assessed and made all the precautions to put me in a brace and make sure it was all the way to my neck, kind of like a motorcycle thing, goes all the way around you with like roller blades, click, 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 and then you tighten it up, goes underneath your neck and it holds your back together, right? So it's quite complex brace I had to wear for, like I said, 7-8 weeks until I had to go in and get a major surgery, right? So like I said, right, I'm grateful for the staff that, and the people that were able to get me on the stretcher and make sure that I didn't become paralyzed, right?
It sounds in some ways, at least to me, like you're almost living a whole second life right now after coming through that.
Like I said, right? Like I said, I feel great, except for the pain, which is normal because it's foreign objects inside there, right? But like I said, right, we made the decision to come home. We went through some stuff. Germany is great for that. They put me back through school, so I was able to go back and get a college degree. After that, I stayed home for a few years. My wife went to teachers college, got her degree. And started teaching, and then a good friend of mine who came to watch my first playoff game in the NHL and all that. So I asked him, I said, "Is there anything I can do at the Ford dealership?" And he's like, "Well, we can make you an on-road salesman, blah blah blah." And the owner is a young guy, and he's like, "Do we take a chance on this guy?" And now it's been 6 years, and it's been a great experience. There's a lot of things that I do at the dealership that I've worked so hard that I understand that it's a team just like any other hockey team at Sterling Ford, right? We're a team, we're a small team, and it's been a great experience. And I've won a bunch of awards there from Ford. I'm grateful to be there.
So true story. And again, I'll say, I'm not just trying to kiss ass. My very first car was a Mustang. So when I want my next one, I'm coming to see you, Paps.
For sure, you can. I'll set you all up. Don't worry. A lot of guys from Toronto that I played with that are calling me now, right? So, like I said, the hockey world is such a small world, right? And like I said, you never burn a bridge because you never know who's coming, who you're ever going to run into years later, right? And yeah, like I ran into a good buddy of mine, Rico Fata, right? And we're playing girls hockey. I look over and he's the coach of the coach team that my daughter is going to play against, right? So you never know, right? Again, Derek McKenzie, his coach said, Wolves, our sons played hockey together this weekend, right? So again, you never know who's going to be there, right? and who are you going to run into down the road, right? So it's always tell my kids to be respectful because, like I said, the world's too small to be an ass, right? So that was one of the things that I keep putting through their head.
The injury and the way it ended for you, notwithstanding, how was the hockey in Europe? How did you enjoy the style of play, the game?
You know what? It was great, right? We're playing on Olympic sized rinks. All the guys that, that I played in Europe, that I played in the O and the American League, they're there too, right? So, guys I played in Bridgeport, Rob Collins, Dan McGillis, a guy I played with, Dan McGillis, who's played a bunch of years in the HL. He's there. Fred Brathwaite. There's a bunch of guys. So you kind of have fun with that, right? And it's great. It's like going to a soccer game in Europe and you're at a hockey game and they're cheering and there's a whole section and they want you to come out after the game and do all kinds of stuff, that the dances that you learn over the year, right? So again, when you get to those opportunities to play in some really great cities, the fans are right behind you. They're cheering. They love their hockey there. And, I wouldn't change it for the world, making that decision on going there and having that experience and having the breaks and having a lot of family time. And like I said, I wouldn't change it. And the experience was amazing, right? From the hockey perspective, a lot of great hockey players. In Germany, there's 10 imports. So a lot more of Americans, North Americans, Russians, Europeans that are able to come and play, right? So I liked my time in Germany, and so did my wife.
You've stayed in the game. I mean, you talk about your daughter and son playing. When I found you for this podcast, I found you as Coach Pap. So you're still wearing a whistle and keeping involved.
Yeah, definitely, right. I coached last year U18AA, and this year I decided I'd step back a little bit. My daughter's last year of hockey probably, and then she's going to university, and my little guy's kind of coming up the ropes now at U12, right, playing AAA. So, staying in the game, helping out spring team as a skill coach with them, working those power plays and PKs and watching over the game and feeding back to the coaches, right? So, I like being involved in that perspective. In seeing the game and reading the game and playing a chess game against the next coach against you, right? And how you're going to shut him down and what is he doing and what plays are he's doing, and that's things that I learned maybe later in my hockey career as a player, as finding that whole overall game from defensive play to offense to PP to PK of learning every position to be able to pass that on to the girls I coached or to the boys I coached, right? As being an all-around player and not just, hey, I can go score goals. Yeah, well, if you can't play in your own end today's, it doesn't help, right? And if you're not an all-rounded player, something that I wish I was a little bit better as a younger kid and not just, hey, that kid that can go score, 50 goals or whatever, right? If I would have been able to play layers or things like that, I think that goes a long way in today's game.
Any chance that we're going to see, based on your son's age, another generation of Papineau coming through the O?
You never know, right? I always told him, I said, you need to be committed. It's a long haul, right? And it's dad's done it. You want to do it, you got to put it in. You got to put the work. You want to do the shots and you want to do this. I'm not going to just jam it down your throat. You need to be able to self-motivate yourself. I will give you all the tools you need to become a hockey player. And that's for him to figure out how much he wants it, right? Yeah, dad played, dad's great, dad did this, but it's now you need to build your own reputation as a hockey player, as a 12-year-old. And at one point you're going to have to make that tough decision, is how much you want it inside, is what's going to push you to be that next generation of a player, right? At that point, right? So I will support him in all costs, but if he decides not to go down that road, well, just like everybody else, there are a lot of other things in this world that you can do that'll make you happy. That's for him to figure it out.
What do you think of the game today in general? I mean, if I listen to other broadcasters, for example, I'm always picking up ideas or listening with a different ear because I've been doing this for so long. It must be similar when you're watching a hockey game as a guy that played it at the highest level.
Like the game, you're not reinventing the game. The game has changed as rules, as no more can openers and no more, the playoffs a little bit story, because it becomes a whole other beast, right? When playoffs come, right? But during regular season, with the amount of teams now and the great skill players, which is what, has changed a lot, right? You remove the red line and you remove this and you make the game a little bit less, not saying it was less. It's just, there is no more cross-checking. There's no as much, hooking and slashing and getting your hands and hooking. I mean, you'll look back in the day and you can hold a guy from the blue line to the next red line and it was okay, right? The game is the same, and there's tweaks to the way you break out or the way the game is played in a certain area, right? And that has changed a lot, where it's a speed game. It's fun to watch. The players are out there skating. They're hard. It's not as clutch and grab and tight, and having that red line opens up the game a bit, right? Where before you couldn't make that blue line to blue line pass, right? That's a 2-line pass. So now that game is stretched out, where guys are able to run they'll be able to get out of the zone without having to get crushed and be in such a confined area, right? Where now you're, and the players are so much more, the sticks, the skates, everything in today's age, right? Like, you're not holding a 2x4 anymore, right? You're holding a stick, and it keep getting better, and the blades and this carbon blade and this, I can't even keep up anymore, right? Where, my 12-year-old's like, Dad, I need this, I need that. I'm like, oh my God, son, like, no, it's going to cost me $16,000 just in equipment, in 1 year, because there's no limit of what news coming out and what to get that extra edge, right? So it's, like I said, it's been fun to watch it in the last, 7-8 years of some high scoring games and some really high, so this LaCroix, that, the Michigan move and the things that kids could do back then, but we didn't. We were a little bit more hesitant of trying it, knowing that, that fourth line might come out there and run us all game now, right? So, those little things now that are allowed, which really shows the talent of the players and their creativity on the ice nowadays is nice to watch.
I hate the Michigan, just for the record. I know that makes me the old man. I get it, but call traveling or something in hockey.
I agree. If you can do it at that high speed, sure, right? Were there guys, trust me, there was guys when I played too that can easily pull a puck up like that, right? But, it wasn't as common as it is now. And like I said, the way kids grab their stick and the way they're out there and the way they're watching YouTube, and how to get better and how to do it and how to keep, figuring it out, which, I had to read a book to do that. Right. So, like I said, right, the movement's great. The game's great. The scoring's good. It's fun to watch. Today's game, would I have loved to play in? For sure. Right. As not a big player and not a heavy, like I said, at 5'11", 170 pounds, right. A little bit different game today than it was, 15, 20 years ago. Right. So, yeah. But like I said,
if I watch closely enough, will I see you at an Ottawa 67s game? Do you still follow the O?
Yeah, we went a couple times, watching players now as Isaiah's getting a little bit older, and he's wanting to get out there and he knows all the players and he's out there trying to watch it, right? Which is now at that age, right? My daughter, would she watch hockey? Yeah, she'll watch the Boston Bruins because that's her favorite team, right? But if they're not on, she's gonna, she might have a different agenda than the little guy, but she will watch some games. But for her, it's it's social, it's fun. She likes the physical play. She likes to be able to, even though there's no contact, but she likes to, be aggressive as a girl, and it's fun to watch, right? It's been a great career for her. It's coming up to an end because there's not much after this, which is a little bit saddening for her. But now it's Isaiah's turn to pay a little bit more attention and let him grow as a hockey player and as a young man, right? So he's going to learn from his mistakes and guide him the best I can.
It is kind of sad that a young woman who loves the game kind of runs out of options at a certain age, isn't it? Like, I think we really need to, and we've talked to people beyond you and I have talked about this, but we got to grow the women's side of this game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel, everybody's in a hurry to get these young girls up, and I feel women's hockey needs to be a little bit transformed a bit in the way it's ran and the way it's done. We're not taking 14-year-old boys and putting them in junior hockey, but it's okay for girls. Well, they're advanced. I understand that, but physically and mentally, when you look at a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old, it's not the same, right? And in the physical play and that, and then you lose those 17-year-old girls because they're now getting replaced by 15-year-olds. We're always in a hurry to get them right, and I feel there needs to be a little bit better system growing up for them, and we can see that game evolve, right? Like I said, you look at Team Canada's in the past. The women aren't 16, 17, 18, 19, right? They're some of them are moms and they're doing a great job in the hockey career, right? And sometimes I feel like those, as you stick with it, I feel they get better, right? And the older they get and the things, transpire a little bit and they become better hockey players. I feel a lot of them would have that longer longevity of playing. They become better hockey players than trying to push the kids out. Well, oh, they're old now. Well, they're 17, 18. They're not old. Where's the junior system to let them keep playing, right? To give them that opportunity, right? Which, like I said, at 16, 17 years old, most girls are either I'm getting a scholarship or I'm not. And then it's like, well, if I'm not, then I'm going to go have fun and play my last career, my last days of hockey, having fun, right? But I feel, there's a little bit of things that they can clean up in the lower levels to make it a lot better. And keeping girls in hockey, there's a lot of girls that quit at that age just because they've been replaced by a younger girl for a speed up situation, right? But I'll be careful what I say just because, I don't want people knocking on my door. Hey, Mom. I just feel like that's something that, I went through as a hockey dad and being in it with a kid who's, had a great career playing hockey, in women's, and, she probably wouldn't change anything for it. She's had a lot of fun. She's met a lot of teammates that she'll probably grow old with and have as friends. So great for her, and like I said, she'll have no regrets playing hockey.
Well, we'll be watching for that Papineau name to come back through the OHL. You never know. Boydie up there in Ottawa has a pretty good eye for talent. Might find something close to home. We'll see. But this has been a lot of fun sitting down with you. Thank you very much for making the time to join me.
No, thank you for having me out here and hearing my side of my little OHL career. I appreciate it.